The title of the message today is Ask Your Friend, and I have in parentheses, God for the details. Ask your friend, God for the details. God reveals on a need-to-know basis. So even about your life, sometimes when he takes you down a path, you go, oh, if I had known. Just like Joseph probably, if he had known, he would have did something differently. I'm sure David would have done something differently when it came to Bathsheba if he had known, ahead of time. But just thought, just pause. But God reveals on a need-to-know basis. That's one way. These are the ways. Another, he reveals on how much you can handle at the time, on a need-to-know basis, and then how much you can handle at a time. Then he reveals based on your relationship with him. And what that boils down to is, can I trust you with the information? Are you needing to go tell somebody what I told you? Then he may not tell you. So those are three ways. There's more ways than that, but on a need to write it down, he reveals on a need-to-know basis how much you can handle at the time based on what the information is. And then based on your relationship, and the sub part of that is, can he trust you with the information? Sometimes he'll give you a word, but it's not to be released. He'll just give you insight. Somebody will say something, and then he'll say something right with it in the spirit realm, but you're not to say anything about it. Somebody may be talking, and he might be talking to you while they're talking to you, but he didn't tell you to tell them. He's just telling you. You just know. But because if you spend time with him, he will talk a lot. He'll talk about there are spaces you can get in the presence of God that every time you look at something or touch something, he'll just show you something about it. Like, I can't even tell you that he'll tell you the history of it, where it's getting ready to go, just all kinds of stuff. Every single thing in this planet has a historical origin, and it has a destiny. And you have infinite amounts of information. Any point of reference can go into infinity. So you can't handle the information. You don't need that much information, but he has it. He knows it, and he reveals quite a bit. So based on your need to know. And also, when he was talking to Abraham, which was so interesting, we wonder, why did Abraham just jump up and be ready to sacrifice Isaac? So we're going to make a reference. If Jesus we only have a glimpse in the New Testament about all that Jesus did, all that writing, and we still only know a fraction of what he actually did and the revelation attached to what he was doing. And probably we don't really know what it was like to sit and hear him talk. We don't know what the spiritual impartation was. When you talk, you don't just say words. You're imparting. There's a spirit behind everything. There's a spiritual influence behind everything. So when you talk, people speak from the spirit. There's a spiritual component to the conversation. There's a spiritual component to the intonations in somebody's voice. So when Jesus was talking, they didn't sit and go what it felt like. I mean, they kind of talk about it, but they're just writing down the facts, just documenting. He went here, he did that, he did this, he said that, They wrote that stuff down, but that's just on paper. That's just the ink on the paper, and then you can kind of go into the realm and kind of see what it could have felt like, but you don't really know what it was like to sit and talk to Jesus or hear him talking to a group. Let me just say this. He had to be saying something for thousands of people to follow him and sit down and want to hear it. That wasn't an okie dokie conversation. There had to be a spiritual compellingness to his conversation, because just by evidence of the fact that people followed him for hours and got hungry following him and still wanted more. So they hungered and thirsted after what he was saying. And then he had an entourage of people around him all the time. Even before he started even before his ministry started, he was a pretty popular guy, because he had disciples before he even had his ministry started. At the wedding, when they invited Mary, and she invited Jesus, he brought all his friends with him. So he had a crew that he rode around with before he even started ministering. So he must have been saying something that made people sit and listen. Just what is he gonna? They listened. He drew people. He had the ability to draw people in, and so that I said all that to say that when he was talking, they don't describe what it felt like. I'm sorry, they do on the part when he had already risen from the dead, and he was walking with some people, and they didn't know. This is a clue. So this had to not only be the only time, but they were walking with him, and they didn't know who he was. And then they commented, "Didn't our hearts burn within us when he talked?" Clue, indication that probably people's hearts were burning within them all the time when he talked, because people were drawn to. They had, not like they didn't have anything else they could have been doing. It was a draw. They were drawn in. So that is barely being communicated in this. So there's so much dimension to the New Testament that we don't get, but you can kind of get a glimpse of it. But they said, it even comments that the volumes of the books could not be contained in the earth realm. Is how much he did. So we only know a fraction of what this was. Having said that, let's go back into the Old Testament and understand that Abraham and God were tight. They talked and they walked together and they talked, and he was revealing stuff. He was talking to him. Probably we know a paragraph or two, a chapter or two about what God said to Abraham, but this is not all that God said to Abraham. This is the documented part of what God said to Abraham. So when you hear people drawing conclusions about do this and don't do that and religious this and religious that, how absurd is it when you don't even have all the information to even make a conclusive statement? You only can go by what God told you, and he didn't tell you everything. He told you a little bit. So here Abraham was and God were talking. So enough to the point that when he's told Abraham to go sacrifice Isaac, Abraham did it. So there was enough of a relationship, enough of a trust that Abraham didn't know how, but he knew enough that God would. He knew enough that he didn't know how he was going to do it, but he knew that he was going to do it. So he didn't have any problem doing he did think about how to do it, because he didn't take Sarah. She stayed home. He took some people, and the people stayed at the bottom of the hill. So he made it possible, but it was God, Isaac, and Abraham, and then the ram in the bush, and the angel that brought the ram in the bush. That's minimally, we know that's what was up on the hill, but the human interaction was minimal, but Abraham trusted God and knew God on a personal level to be able to say, if I perish, I perish. However this is going to happen, I trust my friend. I trust God. And that's what that was. So so it wasn't just a dry relationship and then go sacrifice your son. It wasn't like that. It was a rich, trusted, weighted, tested, endurable, a sustainable relationship, so that Abraham put God first in his life to the exclusion of none. He didn't everything to the exclusion of all. He put God first, so that when it was time, as much as he loved Isaac, he loved God more, and that's what the weightedness that God, based on that, he said, okay, Abraham, if you are willing to sacrifice your son to me, then I am willing to sacrifice my son to you, and you being all of mankind, your seed, for redemption. That's how that exchange happened. It was friends talking. One friend trusted another, and the other friend trusted another, and then God went in. That's why I tell you guys to really, if you sing love songs to the Lord, you can't love God more than he can love you. You can't. You can love God, and he will just really overtake you with love. You can't kiss him more than he could kiss you, because God loves you. You can't overlove him. So go for it. Just all you got, do it. So here we go with God revealing. The important part is we'll get information and then we'll just run down the street with it. But when God gives you, say, do this, do that, whatever, he'll also tell you how. He'll also tell you when. He'll also tell you the details. And he has the details. You have to ask him. So he's not going to push it on you, but you have to ask him. So you go, Lord might tell you to do whatever he will tell you to do. Then you go, great. How am I going to do it? Just sit there and you don't have to wreck your brain about it, because it wasn't your idea, so you don't have to try to figure it out. Ask him. Okay, great idea. And he is very patient, and God has a sense of humor. It really, really has a sense of humor. But I was praying on the phone yesterday with my aunt, and she got into so much detail that I put the phone on mute, and I said, Lord, I just said, Lord, I don't even know how you do it. Thank you. Because you have to imagine what God hears in prayers. You can't imagine. You can't imagine what people say to him in prayers. You can't. You think everybody's praying like, oh, Father, Holy Father, da-da-da-da-da, and bless them and bless them. Some people are telling God to get somebody else. Some people are praying some prayers that probably nowhere in this Bible, but they're praying. And because humans talking, you don't know what humans say. Let's pause everything for a minute. What do you think some humans say to God in secret? You have no idea what he hears. Not only the fact that he knows, but what he actually has to listen to. He'll listen to all of them, but getting to the good stuff. But you have no idea what people will sit and say. So it's something to think about, humanity and human beings, and human beings are at different levels of evolution in their spiritual walk. So you have people that are, it's true. I've seen it on TV, and I don't know where all I heard it, but people used to get ready to rob a bank, and they would have circle prayer before they robbed the bank to make sure they had a successful robbery. This is truth. They do. People get ready to go buy drugs and pray that they make it back and forth safely. You'll be surprised what people actually take to God in prayer out of ignorance or just out of whatever, but they pray for some strange prayers. So everybody's not praying the prayers out this word. They praying they hooking their own stuff up and throwing it out there. And God protects fools and babies. He'll still pray. He still covers you, because he might go, you know what? I know right now you don't know what you're doing. But I have a purpose for your life. So I'm going to protect you even in your ignorance. But because at some point in time I'm going to have need of you. So he does. He works. You don't know how God looks at us and has grace and mercy. If he had, that's why I say don't judge people, because if someone had caught any one of us in one of our situations, whatever that is, caught one of your thoughts when they first came out your head, whatever that is, then you wouldn't be worthy either. So we don't judge anybody else just because you could see what they're doing. Look, you don't know what God. You look at yourself, because God looks at you and looks at us and goes, don't judge them, just leave it. So let me get back on the point. In this conversation that we're talking about in Genesis 18, you're getting insight on a relationship, which is very cool, because they were tight, to say the least. They were tight. They were friends. So when friends talk, that means you talk about stuff that's prevalent, relevant, and important, and then you talk about stuff that's not important. But what happens in the communication is you start to know the person. You start to know them at levels where you don't even have to talk so much, because you just know. You can know somebody based on an indication of a look, and that you like, okay, I know what this is going to, and I got the instruction. And you don't have to have a whole lot of detail. That's where Abraham and God were. They talked. And even in this chapter, God is revealing in this chapter a back thought, a thought that God had about Abraham. And then we also talk about Abraham knowing God enough to inquire, when he says, will you save the city for this amount, for this amount? And he keeps going back because they have a relationship. This relationship that Abraham and God has is very different than the priests inside of the Holy of Holies. Because, see, that's worship and that's being in the presence of God, but that's not the one-on-one relationship. God wants to cuddle with you in personally spiritual way. He wants to talk to you. He wants to get up and pray. Now, you will not get up on your boss because your boss, you tell your boss, I'm not on the clock till 8 o'clock. I'm 8 to 5, so don't call me at 7:59 because that's not my work time. Don't call me at 5:01 because I'm off. You know how you guys do. So that's not God. But a friend can call you at 3 in the morning and say, I need to pray. I need to this. I need to talk. That's a friend. And that's the relationship. There's no bars held. Whatever you require, I will give you. That is what God wants of you, because that is your ride or die. He's a ride or die with you. But you first be a ride or die with him, because you can't partner with a better partner than God. Let me tell you how good it is. I can talk to anybody and talk to anybody about a problem, and fine, I just told them. I just told somebody some information. So what? Blah, blah, blah. You told them, and they might say, oh, okay, whatever. But you can talk to, as God is your friend, when you tell him some stuff because of who he is, he will then turn around and just because you told him. Now, you could tell, or you might feel some kind of security telling whoever's president some stuff. You might say, well, they can pick up the phone and make something happen. Or you can tell somebody that you have a friend that has a big bank account, they might make something happen. But this thing right here, when you tell your friend God, and God is your friend, and you guys are one and talking and rolling out together and doing everything together and talking, should I buy this dress or that dress? He will go shopping with you. He will. I'm telling you, he will do all. He's in there. He really is. He created you, so he knows what looks good on you. He knows I'm telling you, he is into, God is, reason God is into design and he's into interior design is because just stand up and look out on something and see. You see mountains, you see the ocean, you see flowers. The top designer, the one that can, and not only can he design, but he can design the thing to redesign itself, and no two are alike. And he can design the honeybees to come to this thing and pull pollen out and go take it somewhere else, and the whole thing looks beautiful while it is yet happening. And the birds are singing, and he can design those. He just designed the trees that the birds are sitting in, and the nests that the birds build, and tell them where to build the nest. He's deep. So you picking an outfit is not a hard thing for him. But definitely start including him in all your conversations, including him in everything. Before you open your mouth, include him in that. And wherever you open up for him to be in, he will go in. Whatever door you open up, he will occupy. He'll step in and occupy. So I said all that to say that when in the process of, you can tell anybody. Sometimes when I'm talking to you, and if I lose my train of thought, the Lord will tell, okay, start here. So he just reminded me where I was. So when you tell your friends something, they will go, they'll go, okay, fine, cool, great. I wish I could help you. This is all I can do. But when you tell God something, this is what happens. What happens when God knows, when you've talked to him? God's revelation comes with peace, joy, healing, a sense of all is well. And you know why? Because the I am now knows. Write that down. The I am, put that in parentheses. Quotation marks. The I am now knows. Clean slate, all is done, all is taken care of. Once you know that you have deposited your information, that he heard you, I don't know how to explain it, but there's a sense of knowingness when you know God knows, God heard you. What happens in that exchange when you touch God, even just take your finger and touch something. When you touch God, there's a release back into your spirit. You released it into him. He releases back to you. That's the exchange. Just touch the table, touch your computer, touch something. Just take your finger and touch it. And then now, this is what happens. You told him something. Whatever it is you told him, whatever. He knows. The I am just knows, now knows. He's going to release back into your being peace, joy, love, comfort. I got it. I understand. Now, whatever happens after the I am knows, you are okay. Whatever happens after you told him what happened, Daddy, you know how you go, Daddy. Oh, this happened, la la la. And then he goes, got it. Don't worry. And you don't. You're like, okay, I'm here. I told you, good. Then anything happens after that, God got you because you told him. You went to him, and you went just like your kids come to you. Don't let when your kids start crying and come to you. Be like, what? Who touched my baby? What happened? That's the same thing God does for you. Like, what happened? This is what, and he'll tell you, and you don't have to go do nothing. You just tell him. He'll handle your business. You don't even while you yet talking to him. Now he's not, slaying people, dropping them dead all the time, but he'll don't worry about it. He got it. Whatever it is, he has it. He understands, and he got it. Just that's the relationship you have. That's the relationship you want to keep. God's got it, no matter what it is. He's got it. If you're on a plane, the plane's not going to crash. You're in it. If it's your time, done. But if it's not, don't worry. Just, whatever. Don't trip. Relax. He's got it. It's done. Bigger and better than you could ever have even thought of it. But what happens, that's the exchange. Telling God something and communicating that, it creates a revelation. And his revelation comes with a peace, joy, a sense of all is well, a healing. All is well is like, don't worry about it. And you got to know that. You got to get that don't worry about it in your spirit. Don't even, it's done. And you don't have to know where or how, but just imagine this. Just imagine you told him something, and out from the north, south, east, west, up and from below your feet, a solution is coming to you. It is knocking over stuff to get to you, pushing through things to get to you. Solution is coming into your spirit. It's happening now. It's coming into your spirit, in the front door, over the phone, over here, that, whatever. He's going to get it to you. You don't have. That's your daddy. Don't worry. It's coming. From the time you opened up your mouth. Does this sound familiar? Daniel, from the time you set your heart to understand, we was on our way. We was rolling out on you, Daniel. We were coming, Daniel. Ride or die, Daniel. We were here. Same thing with you. From the time, the earlier and often you can tell God what's going on, you tell your friend, you talk to your dad, you tell him. From the time you open your mouth to say, before you can get it out, then I grabbed it. Done. That's how responsive heaven is. They're just waiting for you to ask. The answer's there. Heaven is a place of infinite answers, all answers, every solution, everything you could possibly think of is already there. They got a cure to COVID-19. It has not been released in the earth realm, but there is a cure, because there's not a problem that can be constructed by the nature of what we live in called earth. There's not a problem that can be constructed that cannot be solutioned and deconstructed and put in and set right. There's nothing that can happen that cannot be undone. Because that's by virtue of what we live in. So anyway, it's another topic for another day, but there's solutions. So what we're getting ready to do now is, in the discussion that Abraham and God had, is this even to the point that they talked? Like, they would sit down and talk. He would talk through individuals, but the presence of God, the angels of the Lord, whomever was there, they were hanging out. Abraham and God were hanging out, just like God was wanting to hang out and did with Adam and Eve before, who showed up? But Adam and Eve, they were fine. They were hanging out. They were walking the cool of the day, the breeze. They created this utopia, and they were in the Garden of Eden. And I have to stop adding my own words to this stuff. I'm not going to do that anymore. But they were in the Garden of Eden, and they were walking and talking and having blissful time together. And who was angry, jealous, and wanted to get back at God, so he was plotting on how to get at one of them, and ultimately he wanted both of them. But the God was again fellowshipping with mankind, talking. So today, that is a wonderful thing that you can do it, and that He wants to do it, and you have opportunity to do it. So I advise you, if you don't do anything else, this is your best thing you could do with your time, with your 24/7. Set your mind on spending time with God and just talking to Him, understanding who He is. So then when He talks to you, you hear Him in completion. You're not trying to wonder, is that God talking to me? Because you don't hear His voice often enough. So when He talks to you, you strain in to recognize who it is. But if you talk to Him all the time, you could recognize Him when He clears His throat. You could recognize Him when He goes, oh, He's talking. He's getting ready to tell me something. That's what you want to do. Okay, so we're getting ready to read Genesis chapter 18 on this conversation. Genesis chapter 18. You are looking at a conversation between two friends, man and God, Abraham and God, the basis for which created not this conversation, but there were several. This is just a piece of the long-term conversations. They had hours and hours and hours, years and years of talking. There was a big trust factor in their relationship. So that's why God could tell Abraham something to do, and Abraham did it. Thank God He did. We would have never got Jesus if Abraham had not taken Isaac up that hill. And so here we go with Genesis chapter 18, and that conversation, and then there's a back and forth conversation between the two of them, negotiating with him. We can negotiate. See, they were friends, and that's how He was revealing information to him. This is what you want. You want to get this close. That means you go past trying to please man. You go past trying to be the head of the deacon department. You go past trying to be running the church, the pastor's best friend. You go past all that, past the building, past all that. You want to get to the big person, the person that is most in charge. You want to get to the presence of God. If you got that under your belt, where you could understand how to get into the presence of God and talk to Him and stay in His face and love on Him, and you guys be besties, if you can get there, then everything else don't matter. There's not a human being on this planet more important than your relationship with God. If you can get there, which is where you want to be, then you're done. You're good. He will tell you that that's your friend. That's your bestie friend, and you got the best is your best friend. The best is your best friend, and you're in. You got it. I'm giving you a fist pump. That's the deal. That's the relationship. Wherever He tells you to go, this is your friend. This is the one. That's the one you want to be with.